My girlfriend keeps comparing herself to an old friends with benefits of mine, and now it feels like a self-fulfilling prophecy. She's convinced she's not good enough for me, and it's starting to feel like I'll eventually leave her because of it. I have been dating my girlfriend, Melissa, for almost 2 years. We're both 26 years old, and our relationship has been incredible from the start. She's intelligent, driven, and deeply caring. I feel incredibly lucky to have found someone like her, especially since this is my first serious relationship. We met while both of us were in PhD programs at the same university, albeit in different STEM fields. Our connection was immediate and has only grown since. We spend a lot of time together, and over the past months, we've talked seriously about moving in together, adopting pets, and possibly getting married in the future. While I can definitely see us building a life together, I feel that we're still at a point in our lives where I need to focus on my academic and professional goals. This is something Melissa didn't take well when I expressed that I wasn't ready for a big commitment yet. I wanted to make sure I had a solid foundation before I considered something like marriage. Still, that was the only real obstacle we faced until now. Before Melissa, there was another woman who had a significant impact on me, and her name is Natalia. I first met Natalia during my undergraduate years at college. She was a year younger than me and shared many of the same academic interests. We were both heavily involved in science clubs and a professional fraternity together, and over time, we became incredibly close friends. There was a strong emotional connection between us, and it was clear we cared for each other deeply. Despite the intense bond, we never dated. Though we both harbored romantic feelings for each other, we ended up being what I can only describe as friends with benefits for a couple of years. But the nature of our connection was always somewhat bittersweet, knowing that our future goals were different. She had plans to move abroad after graduation, while I was planning my future in the States. When I graduated and left for graduate school, we tried to stay in touch, but eventually lost contact. Life moved on for both of us, and while I occasionally wondered what could have been between us, I was also content with where I was in life. That all changed when I found out that Natalia had been accepted into the same PhD program at my university. It was a huge surprise when I found out, but at the same time, I was excited. I hadn't thought about her much, but reconnecting seemed like an interesting possibility. Not long after I discovered Natalia would be attending the same university, my girlfriend Melissa came to me with some troubling news. A professor in her department had told her that there was an opening for a grad student to join an important research trip to South America, and she thought Melissa would be the one chosen. They had developed a strong working relationship, and Melissa was confident she had a good chance. However, she was devastated when the position was offered to someone else. The new student had more relevant experience and was fluent in Spanish, which made her a more obvious choice. Melissa was understandably upset, and as she confided in me, she began mentioning this new grad student more and more often. Over time, I learned that this student was, in fact, Natalia. I was taken aback by how much Melissa admired her, and it seemed like every time she talked about her, she would express how perfect Natalia was, how smart, accomplished, and attractive she was. As Melissa became more consumed with this comparison, I tried my best to reassure her. I told her that everyone has their own strengths, and that she shouldn't feel insecure because of someone else's accomplishments. But it became clear to me that no matter how much I praised Melissa, it wasn't enough. I told her over and over again how intelligent and amazing she was, but she kept falling into the trap of comparing herself to Natalia. It was clear that her feelings of inadequacy were beginning to affect her self-esteem, and it hurt me to watch her struggle. I knew that I couldn't force her to stop feeling this way, but I also didn't want it to undermine our relationship. One day, I happened to run into Natalia at a cafe on campus. We hadn't spoken in years, but the reunion felt natural. We sat and caught up, sharing stories of our academic journeys, our accomplishments, and the places life had taken us since we last saw each other. When I told her I had a girlfriend who was also in the same department, she expressed interest in meeting her, and we agreed to meet up for lunch soon. I thought it would be a good opportunity for Melissa and Natalia to get to know each other, as I genuinely believed they would get along. When I mentioned to Melissa that I had run into Natalia and suggested we all meet up for lunch, her reaction was not what I expected. She asked me if I had ever been romantically involved with Natalia, if we had dated, or if I still had feelings for her. I reassured her that we had never dated, but I admitted that there had been a time when I had feelings for her. I reminded her that it had been years since that was even a consideration. Melissa seemed distant after our conversation and left for the night, saying she was too stressed to deal with it. I felt bad about the tension it caused, so I decided to avoid bringing Natalia up again. Over the following weeks, things between Melissa and me became strained. She kept asking me questions that indicated she was unsure of herself. "Do you think I'm smart enough?" she would ask. She would remind me that Natalia had gone to an Ivy League school, while she had attended a state university, making her feel like she was not measuring up. She began to talk about how much more experienced Natalia was, how much better her resume probably looked, and how much more attractive she was. Melissa's insecurities reached a point where she started comparing her appearance to Natalia's as well. She complained about her pale skin, how she couldn't tan, and how she wished she looked more like Natalia. I would try to reassure her, telling her how beautiful she was to me, but it wasn't enough. Melissa's self-worth was being consumed by these comparisons. I began noticing that Melissa was spending a lot of time stalking Natalia's social media profiles, something that upset her further. It was as though she couldn't escape her feelings of inadequacy. I'd also noticed that Melissa started rejecting my attempts at intimacy, claiming she felt unattractive or overweight, which only deepened my frustration. I loved Melissa, but it was becoming exhausting to constantly reassure her and validate her appearance and abilities. No matter how many times I told her she was beautiful, intelligent, and worthy of love, it wasn't enough to get through to her. Despite all of this, I still maintained a casual friendship with Natalia. We would occasionally meet for lunch, but it was always in a very public setting, and I was very careful not to let it interfere with my relationship. However, Melissa's behavior continued to grow more erratic. She became rude whenever she and Natalia were in the same room, and I could tell that she was struggling with feelings of jealousy and insecurity. I tried to be patient with her, but it was getting harder. I suggested that she see a therapist to work through her insecurities, but she became defensive, insisting that there was nothing wrong with her and that she didn't need help. It became clear to me that Melissa was stuck in a cycle of self-doubt, and I felt helpless to pull her out of it. The situation reached a breaking point when I discovered something that I could not forgive. While going through an old photo album of mine, which was a collection of cherished memories from my college years, I found that several photos featuring Natalia had been cut out. These were not just any photos, but ones that included a late friend of mine who had passed away. I was devastated to realize that Melissa had destroyed these memories out of jealousy. When I confronted her, she denied it at first, but eventually her guilty expression gave her away. She apologized, claiming that she didn't know what had come over her, but it was too late. The damage had been done, and I felt a deep sense of betrayal. Since that incident, I've been questioning whether I can continue in this relationship. Melissa's obsession with comparing herself to Natalia and her inability to accept herself have drained me emotionally. I've tried everything I can think of to help her feel secure in herself, but it feels like nothing I say or do is enough. Her behavior has started to make me feel distant from her, and I'm beginning to wonder if I'm ever going to be able to reach her. I'm torn between my love for Melissa and the realization that our relationship might not be sustainable if she can't work through her issues.